Welcome to MegaBucks Radio. Conversations with successful entrepreneurs, sharing their tips and strategies for success. Real-world ideas that can put MegaBucks in your bank account. Here's your host, Nina Hershberger.
Well, welcome. This is part 2. My name is Nina Hershberger, and with me on today's radio podcast, I have Burke. If you listened in last week, you'll remember that we were talking about monetizing Facebook groups. If you missed that podcast, you must go back. You must listen to it because you're going to get caught up with what we're going to talk about. So, Graves, welcome again to this call. Thank you for coming back and finishing how to monetize Facebook groups.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. Part 1 was a blast. That was so much fun. So it's really wonderful to come back and get to talk about kind of the next part of the puzzle with this, which is really getting into the monetization side. So last week was all about the getting prepped and your stance and how you need to show up and how to start doing some of the work to get the results. And this week I'm really excited because we're going to dive into how to really solve the problem for the group admin and solving their problem profitably for everybody involved.
Okay, so just to summarize, I talked about having a passion now during the pandemic about tablescaping. That's setting a table with different china, different dishes, all sorts of things. By the way, Grace, you don't know this, but I have 18 sets of silverware, flatware. Now, some of them only have 4 place settings, and they don't take a lot of room. So I do have a lot of those. But last week, you talked about ways to find groups. Start with your own passion. In my case, I loved tablescaping. You might be a fisher person. You might be a quilter. You may be a magician, like he had a passion when he was growing up. So find open groups, not closed groups, not private groups, but open groups, and do some searching. And you talked about how to find out what their problems are through Facebook, through Google, through asking friends, and searching on Amazon. So we're not going to go back through that. If you missed it, you got to go back. You got to listen to it. Okay, so we now have our group. We now know what our problems are. What do we do next?
Yeah, so there's another problem, and we hinted at it last week, right? It's the other side of the same coin. So last week we talked about the group members' problems and finding those and solving those. There's another huge problem that's glaring that nobody talks about. And that's the problem that the group owner, or as Facebook calls them, the admin, the administrator, has. Here's this poor little admin who started a group, and the group got a bunch of traction. And now here's this thing that's starting to take over their life, where they're having to add people and moderate posts and kick out people that are spammers and kick out people that are trying to sell, stuff on their on Alibaba or their Shopify stores, and they're trying to maintain this group for their members, and they're running themselves ragged, and most of them haven't figured out how to make any money at this. And what ends up happening is a group will go about 6 months, 12 months, and if they haven't figured out how to make money and the group's caught on, they get exhausted. And they start asking people for help to moderate and all this. And the group is doing great, but they're not making any money. And I understand how a lot of people that are very passionate about something also want to give back to the community. They want to make an impact. And I think that's fantastic. I just find it really hard to focus on making an impact if you're wondering how you're going to feed your family or how you're going to pay your mortgage or something like that. And I think if you're providing a really good community for people, that you should be able to make some money so that you can invest back into the community more. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to solve that problem for the group owner and make some money at it so we can have some fun and we can do more cool stuff and we can pay experts to come in and do podcasts or whatever, or partner with companies that have products and stuff like that. So that's what today is all about. And
okay, well, I got my pencil and pen. Let's get going. I'm excited.
Wonderful. So the first thing we've got to do, now that we know what the group is, we know that it's got a lot of members, we know that it has a lot of activity, we know and have done a lot of research about what their problems are for the members, we need to solve the problem of the group owner. And the first big problem is they're having to do everything on their own. They're having to create content for their members. They're having to keep their members happy. I don't know about you, but if you've ever had some form of group where it was free, members can kind of be a little unruly sometimes. They always want free membership. I've got a YouTube channel, which is like a Facebook group, but it's on YouTube, right? I've got this big channel. It's got 23 million views and 60,000 subscribers. And if I'm not putting out content, those people get kind of ornery. And some of that has to do with it's YouTube, right? YouTube is a bit different of an animal, but they get kind of feisty over there. So we're going to come in and we're going to solve that problem for the group owner. So we're not thinking monetization yet. What we want to do is show the group owner, hey, I would love to invest in this community that you have with my knowledge and my time and my energy and heck, maybe even my money and my relationships, and take a lot of this off your plate. So all you have to do is focus on managing what you love to do most, which is delivering the goods, right? And so we've got to reach out to them and broach this subject. The biggest problem I see is people think what the group owner wants is money, and it's not. So we want to make it about them and what they want, which is solving their members' problems. And I know I've said this a couple times already on today's call. The reason for that is because it's so important. Don't make it about making money. Don't make it about selling product yet. Make it about making their members happy. And so we're going to reach out to them. The other mistake oftentimes people make when reaching out to these group owners is they make it about themselves. I can help you make money, or I can help you make your members happy. We don't want to start there yet, because that makes it all about us. And we want to make it all about the group owner. So the framework is this. It's 4 things. All we need to do, because we're just trying to start a conversation. So the framework, and then we'll dig into how to do it, and I'll even give you a template. The framework is compliment them. That's number 1. Step 1, compliment them. Step 2, ask them a question so that elicits a response. Step 3, the way we're going to frame it is asking for their advice. Who doesn't love to give their advice about something? They get to feel like the hero and the expert and helping you out. And in reality, we're going to frame it about solving a problem for their members. And then step 4 is simply asking a very soft question. Would it make sense for us to chat? That's it. And it's going to be in a series of messages. So the first message is that compliment and asking them a question. So it's step 1 and 2, but it happens in one message. And so you do a little bit of research, you find out who the admin is, and you message them on Facebook. I find Facebook Messenger is insanely beneficial to use for this, rather than trying to find out if they have a website and an email and it getting lost in a spam folder. Just shoot them a message. And the first thing we want to do is compliment them. The reason why is because most people that cold message somebody dump a bunch of information and then expect a response back. And it's like, ugh, it just reeks of kind of spamminess. So what we want to say is, hey Nina, who's the admin for the tablescaping group?
It's May.
May. So we might reach out and say, hey May, holy cow, I've looked around Facebook and it looks like you have the #1 Facebook group for people that are interested in tablescaping. That's amazing. When did you start it? And that's it. We pay May a very lovely compliment, and then we ask her a very simple question that she can answer. That's step 1 and 2 of our framework. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense, yes.
Wonderful. So the whole purpose of this is just to break momentum. Right now, there's no relationship, and so everything is very stagnant. All we're trying to do is get a tiniest little bit of movement going to change it from potential energy into actual kinetic energy. If you remember your high school physics, right? we're just trying to get some movement. So she might respond. I'm assuming May is a woman. She might respond with, oh, I started the group in 2019 or 2020, or she might say 2018 or something like that. So in my little example that I have written up here for us to kind of work off of, I had them responding in 2018. By the way, real quick, let me interject. You might see in Facebook, sometimes it'll tell you like when the group was started. Ask the question anyway, even if you know the answer, because it gives May, we've just paid her this lovely compliment, and it gives her a way to start back. If we fill it in, it looks like you started this in 2018, there's nothing for her to grab onto. There's no handle there. So we want to ask her, if you know the answer, ask the question anyway. It's okay. So she comes back and she says, thank you, 2018. Now we might respond with, wow, in a world where most Facebook groups are here today and gone tomorrow, that's a really big feat to have one that's lasted since 2018, right? We're paying a compliment to her answer. So it's kind of like that idea when somebody has an objection, you acknowledge the objection from sales, right? We want to acknowledge the fact that she was kind enough to respond. And so we also compliment her around that. Wow, 2018, you've been around for 2 years. That's fantastic. No wonder you're #1. In a world where Facebook groups come and go, that's an amazing feat. And so that's our compliment. Now we're going to transition into the next piece, which is their advice. And this is done in another message, but we don't need her to respond back yet. So we can type out the first one, right? Which was, that's an amazing feat, enter. And then we do another one, because in Messenger, you can just fire off really short messages, but one after the other. So we're going to do the next one, which was, you know, I was reaching out because I wanted to get your advice. So that's step 3 of the framework, getting their advice. All right, so let's go back to the wording there. I interrupted myself. I was reaching out because I wanted to get your advice. Since you're probably one of the most knowledgeable people on tablescaping, right? You fill in the niche right there on quilting, on scrapbooking, on fishing, right? You just fill in the niche. So in our case, tablescaping. And then the next piece is, and what people who, and then you want to put in the niche again, who are interested in tablescaping are going through. So let me read that all together. I was reaching out because I wanted to get your advice, since you're probably one of the most knowledgeable people on tablescaping and what people who do tablescaping are going through, period. Right? Now you can hit enter. And then the third message is, so I just wanted to get your advice on what your tablescaping members are challenged with right now. And that's it. We just pay a little compliment, we ask for their advice, and we make it about what the group is about. Does that make sense?
It does. So you want to know, you want her to tell what the challenges the people in the group have. Okay.
Yeah, because it's all about letting her be the hero. Let's not show up and assume we know anything. We might be wrong, right? Now, in the next piece, we might hint at an idea if we really are into it. We might hint at an idea just to, again, get some momentum going. But we really just want to, let's just ask a question and sit on our hands and let her answer. So she might respond one of two ways. She might just say, yeah, go ahead, ask your question. Or she might actually give some feedback already. Sometimes they just say, yeah, go ahead. If they say, yeah, go ahead, then we have to ask another question. If they start giving feedback, oh my gosh, we've hit pay dirt. Because she'll tell us what she's seeing. And then all we have to do is dig a little bit deeper, right? So if we have to dig a little bit deeper, there's a formula I like, which is and so basically, and what else, and then by the time you get to about the third one, you can say anything else, right? I love that to dig deeper because sometimes I can be kind of introverted and I forget to ask deeper questions. So it's a super easy way just to go, oh, that's really interesting, thank you. And what else is a problem they're struggling with? Oh, I never thought of that. That's really good. Thank you for sharing that with me, May. And what else are they struggling with? Oh, wow. Holy cow. You know, that's really interesting. I bet they get really frustrated with that. Anything else? And now we've gotten her. She's given us one on her own, and we've dug for two deeper. And when we get to the anything else, she might give us one more. Or that's a really nice way for us to let her off the hook, where she doesn't have to feel like we're just picking her brain, because nobody likes their brain being picked. Everybody loves giving advice.
Yeah, you don't want to be interrogating her, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. So that's if she offers up advice at the beginning. If she doesn't, then we might have to dig into the research we've already done. And here's a really nice way to do that. May, do you find your tablescaping members struggle with blank problem? Whatever the problem might be. You and I chatted about this a little bit earlier, and one of the problems people have is finding a specific pattern, because these patterns sell out and they're very exclusive sometimes depending on the pattern. So we might lead a little bit, but not much. Let's let May be the hero, right? So if she says, go ahead, ask your question, you know, I'd love to give you my advice. Do you find your niche peeps struggle with problem, right? So in our case, do you find your tablescaping members or people struggle with finding certain patterns? Question mark. And then in the same sentence, or what things do you find they are struggling with? Because sometimes people know so much in their own head, they don't know how to get it out. And so we're just giving her an angle to say yes or no to, right? So I used to do a bunch of consulting in the dog training space. And I remember it vividly. I was doing a live event. We were in Sedona, back when you could do live events in person. And I just said, boy, if I were in your shoes, I would be feeling X and Y and Z. Is that maybe how you're feeling? And the person said no. And my mind started racing. Oh my gosh, I just messed up. What am I going to do now? How am I going to solve this problem? And I didn't know what to say. And so consequently, I just shut up. And I just sat in the silence with them. And they thought about it for a second, and they came back and said, what I'm really feeling is X and Y and Z. Now you'll notice I said, are you feeling X and Y and Z? And they said no. Then when they came back, they said, I'm feeling X and Y and Z. They said exactly what I said to them. It was hilarious. But I didn't bring that up. I just let them be the hero. right? They had to say it in their own words. And that's all we want from May. We just want her to say, this is what my people are struggling with. And if they say no to whatever you suggest might be a problem, that's okay. They'll usually fill in that gap for us. And if they don't, all we have to do is say, oh, what do you find they are struggling with? They'll help. May will step up and she'll help. And so if she gives a problem, usually they'll go, yeah, they struggle with trying to find certain patterns. But the biggest one is usually blank. And maybe it's beginners don't know where to start to buy their first whole table setting, or they don't know where to find really good stemware, or they've got 15 sets of silverware and they don't know how to store it in a way that allows them to show it off, even though it's not on the table itself. There might be some really cool stuff, that we just never even thought of. We get a lot of people that come in. I'm making this up, by the way. We get a lot of new people that come in and they've inherited a really beautiful china set from grandma or mom when mom passed away, and they really want to put it to use. They don't want it to just sit collecting dust in a box somewhere. And so they want to learn the fundamentals of tablescaping, and we're not really about that in the group or something like that, right? She'll tell us. And all we have to do is listen and let the light bulbs come on. So I just want to check in and make sure. Does that make sense? Are we still doing good?
It makes sense. Here I'm sitting here surprised, like, wow, you know and understand a lot about tablescaping. I was surprised how many men are really into it. You'd be surprised some of the biggest ones are actually men.
Wow.
Graves, I can't believe it. I'm looking at the time again. We are out of time for segment number 2. So I'm going to ask again, can you come back for the third time? And because I'm still, okay, now we know what May's problems are, and we know what some of the problems she says that the group is having. So I'm still saying, where do we get the money?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just rudely interrupted you. Pardon me.
No,
I got excited.
Go ahead. Yeah,
I was going to say, can we end today's call with the last piece of the outreach formula?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. And then let's do a third part and let's dive into so they've researched the problems. They've reached out to the group owner. The group owner is like, oh my gosh, this person wants my advice. And now the last piece of that communication is going to introduce us into potentially being able to monetize the group long term. And so the last little sentence we need to say to May is just, hey, I don't know. And it's would it make sense? It's step 4, right? I don't know if this would make sense or not, but I may have a way to help solve that problem, whatever the problem May said was, right? I've figured out a way to help your members parrot back whatever the problem is, solve blank. So I've figured out a way to help your members do X, Y, Z. Would it make sense for us to chat about it? That's it. That's all you got to say. And let her come back and say yes or no. She's either going to say yes or no. And if she says yes, then you can set up a little Zoom or a bridge line or do a 1-800 free conference call or just pick up the phone or Skype. It doesn't matter. Just chat. And now we can start talking to her about solving the problem. And that really nicely introduces us into part 3, which is how to start making some money from the group.
So, I talked about this the last time. You actually have a service, and for the, there's going to be people on here that are saying, you know what, I don't want to go through all this. Graves pretty good at this. He does this all the time. Can we just partner with him and he does it and I get a little check? So does that happen? So if they're part of a group or they have a group or anything, that's the kind of thing that you do, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So kind of you to bring that up. I'm really grateful. Yeah, I bring my team in and we do all of it. We do all the research to finding the problems. We do the research to finding the solutions. We do the research to all the monetization. Whether you're a referral partner or a group owner, we can make it work so that all you have to do is sit back and collect the money and focus on what you want to do best.
Like tablescaping?
Like tablescaping, absolutely.
All right, Graves, give your email again this time. You gave it last time, but please give it so if somebody wants to reach out to you, they can do that.
Yeah, it's Graves, Graves, at double, DOUBLE, lift, LIFT, media, MEDIA.com. So that's Graves at doubleliftmedia.com.
And I might say, I was just sitting here as we're going through all of this saying, I will transcribe both of these, actually all three of them. So there's going to be somebody probably would like to have the transcript. I don't know about you, but I'm listening, and I know I'm missing some of that to write down. So if you want the transcript, you're welcome to email me at Nina, Nina, at MegaBucksMarketing.com. That's Nina at MegaBucksMarketing.com. So we're coming to the end of this broadcast. Be sure to check in again next week as we finish up this How to Monetize Facebook groups. In the meantime, begin to think, begin to do your own research. And next week, Graves will tell us how do we make money.
Thank you for listening to MegaBucks Radio with Nina Hershberger. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or to listen to past episodes, visit MegaBucksRadio.com.